Good evening and welcome to the September 3rd meeting of the Portsmouth Historic District Commission. I will introduce our commission right now. We've got our alternate, Susan Strauss. We have Dr. Dan Brown, who is supposed to be here. Hopefully he'll be here soon. Martin Ryan.
Good evening.
We have Vice Chair Margot Doring.
Hello.
I'm Reagan Rudig, the chair. We've got Isaac Gilbo from the Planning Department.
Good evening.
We've got Rich Blaylock, our City Council representative.
Good evening.
David Adams.
Good evening.
And Joy Kurth.
Good evening.
So thank you for being here. I'll just say the board's action in these matters has been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or it will be deemed waived. All right. We have a fairly short, relatively short agenda tonight, certainly in contrast to last month. And I want to thank everybody for taking over. I'm sorry I missed last month, but it was a good marathon session that you had. We do have one request to postpone, which is work session Old Business A. It's a work session requested by Greg and Laura Ludes, owner for property located at 124 State Street, wherein permission is requested to allow the construction of a new detached garage. So can I get a motion to postpone that one?
Second.
I'm guessing to next month? Is that, yeah, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, let's see. So first off, we will have the approval of the minutes from last month. I was not there, so I'm going to abstain from the vote, but if I could get a motion from someone to approve unless there are any notes.
The minute taker did note that there was just one additional slight misspelling of a name, so I will just go back and fix that. That was the only thing that we had noted together. So if you have any other revisions, we can add those as well.
If not, I'll
Move we approve.
motion.
And seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair abstains. All right, so we have a good long list of administrative approvals. There are a few that we've already identified that we would like to take out and talk about separately. So do we want to start with those or go through everything else first?
We could certainly start with those, maybe get the hard ones out of the way, and then kind of go through the list from there.
Okay, so we've at least identified
We have 3 administrative approval items to pull out. It would be number 5, 69 Wentworth Street, number 12, 11 Walden Street, and number 13, 40 Market Street.
Okay, great.
And I will just ask the commission one last time if anyone else has anything else they would like to pull out. Okay, great. So we will start then with item number 5, which is 69 Wentworth Street. And 1 second while I get Oh, sorry about that. 69 Wentworth Street, the applicant here is proposing to replace a total of 6 second-story windows. They are the 6 that you can see on the second floor in this photo here. The applicant is proposing to replace with the Anderson 400 series Woodwright windows. And they would be a 6/6 pattern, which would match what is currently there.
On the first floor.
On the, yes, exactly.
Any comments, questions?
So I had a few questions whether this replacement window is not just the same pattern, but is the exact same window as the ones down below. And then there's no report on the age of the windows, the condition of the windows. I just looked at them from the outside, and yes, they are definitely old. But there's really nothing in the package that tells us why these can't be restored.
Is there anyone here from 69 Wentworth Street? Okay, so we can have a we can have a motion to approve it, or we can have a motion to continue it to next month and get a little bit more information about the history of the windows, the condition of the historic windows, maybe when the approval of the existing first floor windows was, and a little bit more detail on that.
So I'll make a motion to continue to next month.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Chair votes aye. All right.
Okay. Then that will bring us right down to item number 11, which is 11 Walden Street. The applicant here has had some instances where they've had vehicles hit their front stairs. They've had to do some repairs and replacements along the way. So essentially, the applicant is essentially hoping to install 6 granite posts that would go from kind of either corner of the home, wrapping sort of around the front to create a sort of protective barrier. I will say that this particular home's property line and the stairs are actually within the city's right-of-way. So even if we were to approve any type of deterrent, it would then have to be approved by the Department of Public Works for the material and the installation. It would have to meet their standards and requirements. And it would also have to go to the city council for a license to install in a public right-of-way. So there are a few hurdles if this were to be installed. The other thing I could offer is I did actually meet with our Director of Public Works late this afternoon. And he had just mentioned that the granite posts, although could look aesthetically pleasing if done correctly, wouldn't necessarily hold up to anything being hit into them. It would most likely crack. So for those reasons, I'm not sure if anyone has any alternatives, but it sounds like the granite posts may not be the best solution for this. So with that being said, I will let you guys discuss that.
Anyone? We've had a couple public comment letters come through on this one, cautioning against putting anything else farther into the roadway here because it's already a very narrow roadway. So,
Snow plowing will probably be an issue.
Yeah.
We live on a small street, and our property line ends with the house, so our stairs are sticking in the street. And when we replaced them, the only thing we could tell the city is we're giving them back 8 more inches, because our new stairs will be shorter. So they allowed us to do that, but it's tough when you're right in the public way.
I mean, there's certainly the alternative of making granite stairs, which would hold up better and not be damaged quite as heavily if hurt. There's apparently a secondary entrance that could be used. Is the owner of 11 Waldron here to talk about this? But okay.
My impression was that, while not a bad idea, a lot of the issues that have already been raised in terms of public works and the material came to mind. I also thought that the number that was suggested was a little bit much, and the placement, if not next to the stairs, would encroach even further into an already narrow space. So I sympathize with the problem that they're having. I think that it's going to require some creativity. I would support anything reasonably that helps these people with this problem, and maybe the granite steps is an option.
I agree that I certainly would like to help their situation, but bristling the front of the building with 8-inch granite posts that are 36 inches tall, if they're the size and scale and number of them are all beyond what we have ever seen, it doesn't make any sense. If you want to do something with granite, I agree the stairs is a place to start. The other thing is to somehow work it out with the city to put a curb in,
Yeah.
so that someone can steer it, because these really are just punitive, I'm going to scratch your car if you get too close.
Or worse, yeah. Yep. Okay.
That's a good option. Thank you, Dave.
So
The first 5 or
I guess we need a a motion to deny this, and the applicant can work something out?
Look forward to another solution.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to deny the request as written, but am supportive of the applicant's efforts to protect their building and steps.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. All right, so there's, 11 Waldron Street was denied. And then 13, 40
Yep.
Market Street.
So next on our list would be item number 13, which is 40 Market Street. So the applicant here is hoping to replace their existing set of dual doors for the entry of their business. They have, had repairs done in the past. They're experiencing some rot or other damage, as they claim in their letter here. So they are seeking to go to a single door for that particular space, as they believe that, it would just help flow in and out of the shop. I'm not sure if we have the applicant or the owner of the building here who could maybe perhaps speak more to the existing conditions. We do have the letter and we do have the photos that were sent in, but additional information could be
And from
helpful for
40
that.
all right. Doesn't look like anyone from 40 Market Street is here. Any discussion on this one? I know that, when was the last time, we've seen this before? It was a few months ago at
Perhaps
least.
June,
Months ago, yeah.
May, it was earlier, quite a few months ago.
Yep. Yes.
I would just simply say I didn't see any rot necessarily in the doors when I looked at them. I know the frame was in bad condition, was splintering and cracked. The idea that these have been repaired, I think they really need a thorough restoration repair, where if there is any rot, that be removed, and maybe the door style or something needs to be replaced. I'd hate to lose such a piece of historic fabric that is part of Market Street. There's a lot of double doors on Market Street, but there are a lot of double doors that were probably removed and a single door placed in. This is some real historic fabric, and I think a real restoration needs to occur on the door, not a wholesale replacement. And the idea that it would be handicap accessible after that, I don't see that. That's there's still a step involved. So I know that's going to take some effort and money, but I think it's important that these doors be saved.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'd like to make a very similar comment, having reviewed the doors and the hood, so to speak. I find the double doors is a charming bit of nostalgic, old-time storefront. In some cases, they're the original doors to the buildings. There are all kinds of competing interests here, in that the Coconut Grove rule says that the doors should swing out. The city has a problem with doors opening on sidewalks. The ADA has a problem with doors with curbs. The solution that's been taken in many circumstances, even some where the double doors are preserved, is to make a recess for the doors to set in. That would solve the weather problem that exists or not. But as far as coming up with a better door that's more appropriate for the building, I don't see how we can. These are a lovely set of doors. So I'd like to do as much as possible to encourage the applicant to repair and retain these.
Well, I think that we can either, again, entertain a motion to deny this, or we can entertain a motion to move this to a public hearing where we can have a discussion with the applicant and have a bit more thorough understanding of, give them a chance to, again, look at the codes, look at the handicap accessibility issues, and have a real solution, and a solution that you know, if we do approve a replacement, we need specs and details and more information than what's here, so.
I'd like to move that we move this to a work session with the applicant and carry it from that
Work
direction.
session, public hearing, maybe?
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. All right. Thank you, Isaac. Let's now do the rest of the 11 that we still have here.
All right, so we'll go right back to the top with item number 1, which is 28 Chestnut Street. This particular project was here last month, and we were just kind of wanting some more clarification and also wanting to see if the location of the Congress Street, I believe, gate could be moved back to accommodate for the mural that is there. So I'll just quickly kind of run through the application again. In this photo here, there's 3 components to this. It's 2 gates and then a replacement of a chain link fence. The chain link fence is hard to see, but it runs right behind all of these trash cans here. It's in pretty rough shape. Parts of it are loose, falling, and there is a 1-story drop off there. So that is pretty well needed for safety. It's not visible. You can't get back there. It's all private property, so you wouldn't be able to see that. And here's just a photo looking up at kind of where that fence is now, and you can see there's a lot of trash cans and, you know, a big drop off for folks at night if they're not familiar. So the original gate was going to go right sort of across the alley entrance here. The applicant has agreed to move that back several feet, which would allow for folks to still enjoy the mural that's there, but would then stop them from encroaching too much onto that private property in the rear. And they would be proposing this style fencing and gate. And then here's just another better sort of elevation of that. And the additional gate for Porter Street, let's see. Looks like the photo for that got chopped off.
Actually,
I'm sorry, you can,
further up where you were talking about where the.
we can't hear,
Sorry.
the people
Do
can't
you
hear.
mind?
So come on up to the podium and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm the Director of Operations at the Music Hall.
Great.
The photo where the second gate is where we were, the original photo you were talking about, the 4-foot chain link fence. Right towards the back, there is a stairwell there that would connect to the 2 buildings, 2 different properties there.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
thank you. And do we have any questions while the applicant is up on materials or placement?
How will you secure it to the walls?
There's 2 posts. If you go to the drawing, there's 2 posts there that don't impede on the brick walls because they're historic, but they can go into the ground.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, if you anchor both of the posts, that means that this won't actually operate.
The post, then there is a section of fence, then the gate, then a section of fence. That's just an indication of just what the fence looks like.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments?
Just to be clear, this is hollow steel pickets.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
We did look around the neighborhood and we found similar, and that's the closest we could come up with.
Can you tell us, since we don't have a plan or drawing or anything, just so that we know and it's recorded, how far, how many feet back from the brick sidewalk it is intended to be installed?
Right there is about 5 feet back.
Okay.
Where we would like to do is split the difference. If we move it back any further, then you could use the gate to climb up to the fire escape there. And we've had quite a few incidents back there because it is so private that we would like to stop people from climbing up those fire escapes.
Okay, so 5 feet is what you're indicating here?
Yep.
Okay.
But we're open to whatever we think is best.
This is not our purview, but I'm dying of sort of curiosity. It seems it's locked. Is it a code that the?
It's locked from the outside, but it is emergency exit for the music hall. So there's a crash bar coming through. So it's always unlocked coming
Okay.
out
Thank you. That's
both gates.
what I was concerned about. Thank you.
And there's lock boxes on both for the fire department.
Yes, Mr.
Thank you.
Lewa.
Yeah, I'll just say I've witnessed kids I've coached climbing up these and had to yell at them myself. So I totally understand wanting to keep people out of there and keep it safe. So I'd be supportive of it.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
And, just move on?
Yep.
Unless there were any specific stipulations? Okay.
All right, so that will bring us to item number 2, which is 36 Richmond Street. This project was before us, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, and they had replaced windows on one side of the home as part of an overall renovation project. They would now like to replace the remaining windows with the same windows that were approved on the renovation project before. So here's one side that contains 8 of the 13 windows they would like to replace. And these are the additional 5. And then these are the windows that were replaced prior along with the side porch project. And then I just included the original project approval, which has, of course, all of the window spec information that they are proposing.
Questions, comments?
Okay.
All right.
That will move us along to item number 3, which is 235 Marcy Street. The applicant here was before us last year. They received approval for a sizable renovation project at the property. Originally, it was approved that there would be 5 original windows that would be restored on the project, with the remaining windows being replacements. The homeowner has had an inspection done on those 5 windows that were to be repaired. They have found that they have asbestos in them, and so they are hoping that they can instead replace those with the approved windows on the rest of the home. We do have a statement from a specialist, just sort of analyzing the conditions of the windows, and their report is there. And then we have a few photos of the existing conditions.
Any questions? I'll just say that I've never heard of asbestos being in windows, not that it couldn't be there, but we also, I think, expect for most historic windows that are being restored that there's going to be lead in them. So, either way, the windows would need abatement if being restored. So, is anyone from Marcy Street here that could answer any questions about this?
I do believe that the applicant is on Zoom. Shiva, if you can hear me, you should be able to speak now.
Yeah, so my name is Shivananda, and we own Marcy Street. Most of you are aware of the place and the conditions. So there's a lot of things. You're right, there's lead on the paint, on the frame. There's asbestos on the glaze of the windows, all the glaze. And the conditions are pretty bad. A lot of the panes are broken, cracked, and the frame. So, we can go through all the effort, but, I don't think it makes too much sense to go through it. And it's only 5 of 22 windows, so.
All right, any comments or questions on this one?
As I recall, the purpose was putting the 5 on the front of the house so that the house from the street would give the most historic, original presentation.
No, I think it was, we could put it any way we wanted, as long as we had the 5.
Yeah, I'd have to disagree with that.
Yeah, no, I believe it was presented that the 5 best conditioned windows would be restored and put on the facade so that the elevation facing the street, right on the street, would have the historic windows in them. So,
Yeah, okay. I may be wrong, but my recollection was as long as we had the 5, it could go anywhere, but I could be wrong in that because Carla presented that, so.
okay. Well, any thoughts? I mean, clearly the windows are in really rough shape. So,
And we would love to, keep as much, but the problem was if you've seen, nothing was done to the space. And so the conditions are pretty bad. I mean, there's water seepage and stuff like that. And, our intention was to restore and refurb. And it's not so much the cost, because if you look at the overall scope of the project, it's more functionality, sustainability, and safety.
okay. Thank you. Any questions or thoughts on this one? Yes.
I would just, I would ask a question of the applicant. If the glazing didn't have asbestos within it, would that make a difference in your approach towards this?
I think yes, partially. See, because some of the windows are in very rough shape, and you literally are basically saying, okay, just put everything new, and because the frames are all rotted and broken, a lot of them, and then a lot of the glass panes are broken. But the asbestos, yes, it was concerning to us, but we had to do the report for just the general demolition because as part of the safety stuff, but it's combination, I wish it was in good shape and we could put it, restore it. And I can tell you this, that growing up where I grew up and then the company I ran, we were all about reuse and recycle. That's what I did for 30 years at electronics companies. So, I'm not against any of that, but I also think practically it doesn't make too much sense.
Understood. I'm just saying that to restore the windows, you're going to remove the glazing. The glazing is going to be removed under controlled conditions regardless of whether it's asbestos or not because of the lead. So
Agreed.
I can't see why you can't find 5 windows somewhere throughout the house that would allow you to place those in the street side where it will have the most impact. So I'm concerned that
No, so this is, of the 22 windows in the house, only 5 were to be restored.
correct.
These are the 5 historic windows we are talking about. My basic concern is we go through this, and I can 100% tell you that some of the windows will break in this process. Will break. And so you won't be able to replace all of them. That much I know for sure, just by looking at the condition. And so from that standpoint, we basically just felt that, it makes more sense for us to have, all the windows the same time.
Maybe we're misunderstanding each other. I'm saying that out of all the windows throughout the house, you can't find 5 that could be restored and placed on the street side, on the major street side?
Yeah, I guess the question
Oh,
is,
but they're
these,
not historic.
are these the 5
Yes,
best
historic,
conditioned
yes.
windows that you were able to
Yeah.
find?
Yeah, these are the 5 which we identified as historic, and therefore we wanted to keep it.
I mean, there is a potential compromise, which is to narrow this down to 2 and put the lower level, which are the ones that people actually walk right next to. This is a narrow street, so people don't get a long vista of the second story.
Yeah.
I mean, that.
You're
I'm just-
right.
I'm just
You
throwing,
know.
I'm just throwing out an idea.
I
Yeah,
also-
unless you're right in terms of unless you're like standing way back, it's so narrow, there's no way you can look vertically up. Yeah, we can certainly consider that, trying to see if we can salvage 2 good ones and put them in the bottom.
I think, I'll just throw it, I think that in the grand scope of this entire project, this whole house is all going to be brand new. Except for the framing
Yes.
and some things in the middle, the front door is being saved and the side lights. It's got new
We are doing
siding, new
that, yeah.
trim.
And you're absolutely right. That's why, in the grand scope of things, I'm also looking at from an efficiency standpoint, which, goes with the historic stuff and sustainability. You're gonna put windows, 20 windows that are energy efficient and up to specs, and 2 windows that are not, so,
Yeah. All right, thank you. So,
yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has any, if we want to vote on this separately, or how people feeling.
I would just add that we're keeping the door, that's gonna stay original, be restored. We're keeping the
Yep.
side lights, that are going to be restored. So if the 2 windows in the front are restored as well, I'd say that you've at least maintained some of the original fabric that is important and would be experienced at the street level. And that's something I could support.
My
Yeah,
comment,
we are open to that, with one caveat though. For the windows, we need to have flexibility of picking up the 2 that actually can be restored
Yes, of
out of the
course,
5.
of course. That would be up
Yeah,
to you.
so that's fine. We'll certainly try that. And the door and the side lights, we are absolutely doing that, so.
Okay, thank
And
you.
also, like, it's just the condition, because if you see the roof lines and stuff like that in the older buildings, there's just so much leak and stuff, so.
Yes, all right, thank you. Joy, did you want to say?
I guess my comment would just be that if you're going to restore the 2, how much more scope is it to restore the additional 3 at that point? And does the door have the same issue and the side lights with,
No, the door doesn't have the same issue in terms of asbestos. So
and you had that
From a-
tested as well?
from a practical standpoint, we would like to replace all the 5 windows, and then we agree on 2 to keep the bottom, and then now you say go back to 5. But I think, the chairman had a point. You're looking at a complete renovation. We are keeping the shell of the place, but everything else, you've seen that building. And so at some point, we have to be, historic, but perspective of the time. I mean, we bought the place not because we wanted to tear it down. And we want to do justice to the place, but, we all need to be practical and thoughtful about, what is it that we are trying to achieve and what is the impact on the overall scope.
And you had the door tested as well?
Yes, yeah, we had to do a complete testing because of, because of the demolition work we were doing. So prior to the demolition, we had to do all this work so that we take the things out properly, and you had to have certified people do it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comment on this? I think I'd like to go ahead and pull this out for a separate vote, but. Dr.
Just one
Feldman?
last comment. If you look what they're doing, the whole house is being rehabbed, and there's very little left of what was there before. And I think it would be a nice gesture to the historic area to at least have the door and the first 2 windows saved.
Anyone else? All right. and-
My comment is I just think if you're doing 2, then how much more scope is it for 3 more?
I think there's more, yeah. All right, I
But
think
some
we've
of
talked,
the windows are broken.
I thank you. I think, all right, we need to move along, so I'm gonna go ahead
Okay,
and
no
ask
problem.
for a, motion for this one. It could be whatever anyone who likes to make the motion would be.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve that the applicant, choosing from the historic windows that are available, find two, or a combination that creates two, that will be restored and installed in the first floor to the right of the door. And that the upper story windows can be replaced with identical windows that were approved with the original approval of the house.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Joy is opposed?
We didn't have a second.
We did.
Yep, Dan.
Yeah, Dan
Thank you.
seconded.
Oh, sorry. Okay, great. Well, glad I,
All right, and chair votes aye for this one. All right.
sorry, didn't hear that, Dan.
Thank you very much for your comments. All right.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to 11 Meeting House Hill.
All right, so that brings us to 11 Meeting House Hill Road. This particular project is seeking approval to remove the bishop caps that are on the chimneys and replace them with just a sort of metal, black metal covering, which we can see as an example on a neighboring property. So this is essentially what they would look like. So they're hoping to swap those. They are experiencing some water intrusion, and they're also worried about potential animals finding their way in.
Can I ask a question of our chimney expert? These bishop caps, was there a real function to them, or were they just pure ornamental? I mean, they're everywhere. There must have been something good about them.
They're not exactly everywhere, but during the period when we stopped burning wood and started burning coal in small stoves or smaller fireplaces, not the big colonial, the flues got smaller and the caps were put on to control the weather. Some of them are quite functional. There are many that don't work because of wind directions and things like that. I have a bit of a history with them. We used to do a lot of work like that, and it was a real crapshoot as to whether they would work out or not. We live in a modern time where houses aren't as leaky as they once were, so they're problematic. What strikes me about these chimney caps is if you actually look at in the photograph, you'll see that where they spring in the center, well, one of them springs in the center, it springs in two bricks coming up, whereas there's really just one brick that it's setting on. I can't believe that they actually would work to help the chimneys breathe. They're also, if you've ever done any research on them, they're much taller than your typical chimney cap. These are clearly reproductions. Whether this house ever had them or not, I don't know. But they appear, as you say, many places in town. It's surprising how long most of them have lasted. But to say that the house won't look the same without these, I don't think it's going to, personally, I don't think it's going to change the architectural presence of the house. Doing a survey of the neighborhood, it's amazing how many chimneys now have these metal caps. They're almost become the classic chimney cap at this point.
Thank you.
I'll just say I was also surprised to see the exposed side of the brick with the three
cores?
cores in them being exposed to the very top of it, which seems like a bad situation. All right, any other questions or comments on this one? Yes.
I was just going to say that, I find these caps quite a statement and part of the house. I would hate to see simply just another cheap stainless steel cap in this part of town. on a house of this level of restoration. So I'm not going to support simply a removal and a stainless steel cap. I would hope for a better solution. Maybe I think they're too distinctive to just simply lop off and put another metal piece up there.
Okay, anyone else? Do we want to vote on this one separately then? It sounds like we have some differing opinions.
Yes, please.
Can I,
Oh, yes, do we have,
Can I-
It looks like a yes.
yes, do we have someone here?
yeah. Yeah, so again, it's me, Shiva, and so we bought this place in 2023. And this was renovated in 2019. Completely renovated in 2019. And I can tell you this, we wanted to keep it, but the original person that renovated this place tried a lot of things, and it does leak. And it's actually pretty problematic because we have in the bedrooms where there are 4 fireplaces, out of which only 2 are functional. And we have to stuff things to let the, prevent the water from coming down. So it does leak. We've tried for a year to see what we can do, and it's most dramatic when there's wind, which we have quite a bit. And the other day, we actually saw a raccoon around there and in the neighborhood. So it's not practical. We've been there for 1 year, and we've tried different things. We've actually had the person come and we put cardboard to see what's happening in the wind and stuff like that. So that's the reason why, we are requesting that, we put a cap. It's, if it functioned, there's absolutely no reason why we would spend money and put a cap. And we tried. We've tried a couple of things, and you're more than welcome to come and visit the house if you want, and you'll see we've things stuffed in the fireplaces to prevent rainwater from seeping in.
So
Yes.
I just had one question. It appears that one of the chimneys has been capped with cement, and is that chimney experiencing any?
You're absolutely right, because that chimney is fully broken inside. And in order to make it functional, so we basically capped it. But from an aesthetic standpoint, if you're going to put a cap, a stainless steel cap in one, the other one, it just doesn't make sense. So you're right. One of them is capped on the top, the left one.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah.
all right. I mean, yeah, I don't know that we have, if we had solid evidence that Bishop's caps were original to this building or something, I think it is a very, it's a aesthetic statement. Bishop caps are also often sort of posthumously put on the tops of chimneys to give it a more colonial and historic look. But I can't, I personally can't support keeping this just for the look if it's allowing water damage to the house, since this is a totally new rebuilt chimney section anyway.
And the caps are not original to the place. I think they put it for aesthetics. And
Right. So, unless anybody else has any comments, let's go ahead and vote on this one too, in case we have some.
I would just simply say that I could entertain a change if the change had more of a consideration for the history of the house and the
Would a copper cap be more?
that or a clay, couple of clay caps potentially. I mean, typically these chimneys would not, a moisture issue wouldn't be a problem because they'd be used constantly. But yeah, I just I can't approve the replacement that's being offered.
Is
Would
it the
you-
metal that you're reacting to?
It is the standard stainless steel metal.
I mean, there's another solution which we used to employ, which was a bluestone cap that was set up on a couple of brick,
Yeah.
4 bricks in the corners and a slab of bluestone across, and giving them an 8-inch.
But then we have to put some kind of a mesh around to prevent any kind of critters or animals coming.
And then you could bury
have
hardware
seen-
cloth inside the flue underneath that. That's a old school, before the metal caps were de rigueur.
Sure.
So I guess
Yeah,
there are
or we could,
alternatives.
like, if you're saying, is copper an option for us to look at?
Right, I see that these metal caps are made in copper as well. If that would be the,
Yeah, we can look at copper, we'd be open to it. It's just not practical. I mean, we would love to just keep it and not go through the expense and the hassle.
that's
Not with the Historic District Commission, but I mean, actually getting the work done. But yeah, if copper is an option, give us that or the bluestone, and we'll find out what is the best and put that in.
do we, this is not something we should be doing in an administrative approval, but do we have agreement as to what the more appropriate cap should be for these chimneys?
Would we benefit from to postpone this?
I think that the applicant is willing to do whatever we say, so we're here, and now let's just make,
And plus,
And
given
so we're
the
getting- now we're designing.
season and time,
yes, but if copper is the better material, then let's, somebody make the motion for that. If the bluestone is the more appropriate material, somebody make the motion for that. And
I would be amenable to bluestone or copper cap.
okay, we can have that.
Remember, I'm
that-
just one voice.
Yep.
And I hear your points, and I'm in support of your points.
Okay. If we would like to give them the option of either a copper or a bluestone cap, we can make that motion as well. And they can simply submit whatever plans to Isaac to have on file. But I would love to get past this one.
I'll make a motion for a bluestone cap as the approval with stipulation.
Thank you. Any second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So if you can put together a bluestone cap plan and just submit that to Isaac so he can have it on file, then we'll be good to go.
great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now,
State Street.
State Street.
All right, so item number 6 is 526 State Street. This project was before us last month for approval. They've come back with a few minor changes to the previously approved design. So essentially, we've got 3 specific changes here. On the north elevation, State Street, there's a shift in the location of the door window opening due to a beam and post alignment. And there's a slight change to the opening width to accommodate required structural framing. On the west elevation, the side yard, there's an elimination of 1 window due to wall requirements. There's an adjusted trim detail to match the structural post location. Number 3, the connection between the house and the rear addition. There'll be infilling of an existing door, not original, and creation of a new opening to align with the engineered support framing. And then that just better restores the original historic layout of the property. And then we have we have the original approval here, and then we have the changes that are highlighted.
I think if you go to the drawings, the elevation drawings, it's probably the best illustration of this. All right, are there any questions or concerns about any of these changes?
Okay. Great, then we can move on to item number 7, which is 170 and 172 Gate Street. Again, this project was before us either last year or maybe just the year before, they got approval for a garage redevelopment, excuse me. It come to find out that the dimensions were just a little slightly off, and so they are coming back just with the revised dimensions. Nothing changes about materials, location, anything like that. It's simply just to have the correct details on file. This project did have to go to the Board of Adjustment, so unfortunately they do have to go back to the Board of Adjustment. So in the event that the BOA denies the minor discrepancy, the original approval, I'm assuming, would then stand, so.
This 251 versus 252 square feet. Oh, that hurts.
Okay, so seeing no questions there, why don't we move right along to item number 8, which is 44 Rogers Street. So the applicant here has a one-story garage on the property. It's in not the best shape. It's been maybe neglected, over the years. So they are hoping to give that some new life by adding a new garage door, a new pedestrian door, one new double hung window, and then replace trim and siding as needed. Most of the materials are in kind. The garage door is the style that's shown on the plan as a embossed steel door. And it would be clapboard siding, clapboard trim as well, wood trim.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Any questions? All right.
Does embossed mean not wood grain, but
Just like the press.
yes,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, exactly. Okay, great. So that will bring us along to item number 9, which is 500 Market Street. The proposal here is for the installation of a condenser unit, which would be located roughly where the red box is here. They are planning to surround that with a wood screening option, as noted further in the application. And this is already installed at one of that property's buildings, so it would be matching that one.
Is the applicant here? I do have a question.
Do I have someone for 500 Market Street? Checking online. It doesn't look like we have anyone online. I may be able to answer the question.
My question is how come this is needed, like an installation of this? Like where is the existing condensing unit?
I'm not sure that they have, that's just on another building on the property. It's Nobles Island Condo Association, so they're just wanting to replicate that in the building that's closest to the road.
No, I understand that. I'm
It
asking
looks
why
like
is it
this is
needed?
a new installation that they're putting in air conditioning.
Okay.
There is no sense of any kind of piping. I assume it's just going straight into the building and being distributed there. That this isn't a split air kind of approach. Because there's no discussion
Yeah.
of it.
We can certainly make the stipulation that if there is any ductwork, that design or appearance come back to us.
Yes,
Very good.
absolutely.
Good.
Otherwise, if it goes straight into the building,
Yeah,
then.
if you can't see it, then that's fine.
Okay, I will just jot that down 1 second.
Yeah, my question or concern is like the placement on this. Like there's a fence there. I didn't get to walk by it this morning, but does it need to be right there? Because that's what you see driving into the city. Like could it be placed? So that's why I was trying to understand what the need for it is or where was it previously?
Sure. I guess I'm not the applicant, so I guess I can't particularly answer that one, sorry.
Those are my questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
if you had a concern about the type of screening, given how prominent this is to the road, That the gray screening that's appropriate in other parts of the condominium association, if you think it's not appropriate to the road, is that the issue?
I'm questioning the placement of it. Like, does it need to be right there?
I guess I can't answer that either. I would assume if it's going directly in, it's feeding somebody's unit, and to put it around the corner would defeat the purpose of feeding that particular unit.
However, if it's those 3 windows right there, is that the same unit? Could it be moved over behind the fence so it's not quite as visible? But
There, who knows, there are limitations to clearance for where you can place it, so it might, if the fence is too close, you might be able to place it there. I don't know. Well, move on.
Okay. All right, so
or
that will-
can we ask for these questions to be answered before we approve it? Or is it?
Do you want to postpone it to, or continue it to next month?
pull this one out and continue?
We can, sure, if that's what you would like. We can vote
That
on
would be my recommendation.
We get a motion, would you like to make a motion to
I'll make a motion to
continue
postpone.
this to next?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. All right, so
Okay.
that one is postponed.
All right, that will bring us to item number 10, which is 112 Newcastle Avenue. So there are a sort of a couple of components for this particular one. So aside from repainting the house and potentially repairing some trim or siding in kind as needed, which is of course exempt, there are shutters on the home currently. Some of them are in rather rough shape. They are sort of either rotten or kind of completely broken in certain spots. So the applicant here would prefer to just remove the shutters. If that is not an option, they would prefer to just have them on the front of the home, and they would repair or reuse, in kind as needed if that was the case. The second item would be removing the heating chimney. It is no longer necessary for the functionality of the home. Let me just get down to a better photo of that. So as you can see here, the heating chimney would be the one to be removed towards the middle and center of the structure. And the fireplace chimney, which is working in the family room area, would remain. So it would still retain one of the two chimneys.
I'm sorry, Isaac, could I just interrupt for a second?
Yep.
So in the write-up in 2, it says the chimney for the fireplace will not be changed if possible. So I'm confused. Are they saying it will, or are they talking about the chimney that they're removing, or are they talking about the other chimney?
Is there anyone here for?
If you don't mind.
Yes, please. Introduce yourself, please.
Sure. I'm Sue Nalowak, owner of the property. I believe read the sentence, there's a period. The plumbing vent, let's see, where were we here?
Oh, I see, venting from,
The
if
chimney for the
possible.
fireplace will not be changed, period. If possible, the venting for the bathroom would be put in that same location.
Okay, thank you.
And then the third of 4 items would be to eliminate a half bath window on the back first floor of the house. And then the last and fourth item would be to install 2 HVAC condensers. These are actually also located on the rear of the home, and so therefore meets our exemption for placement, but figured since we're bringing all of this up, we might as well have it on file. I do know with speaking with the applicant just the other day, they may have one additional window on the rear of the home that they would hope to also eliminate. If the commission is willing to allow the applicant to share which window and include that in this application, they would hope to do that this evening. Do you mind showing on this?
Not at all. That picture actually hides the window. It is
Oh.
to the left of the window on the second floor.
Okay, let's see if we
So
can
if
get
you
a
go
better-
to exhibit, sorry. Figure 4?
Yep.
Yes. It is the window closest to the corner of the house.
Okay, so this one right here in the rear?
Yes.
Okay.
Upstairs, the second floor.
Oh, second floor, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
It is a bathroom window. I'm sure could have been added later when the bathroom was put in the house.
So the second floor window here, all the way to the edge. So hoping to infill those two windows as well.
And can I comment on the condensers as well?
Sure.
We will probably be putting mini splits in, but they will all be facing the back or the side where you can't see them from the street.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions, concerns about chimney removal, window removal, anything?
I do want to add, of course, that the windows would be infilled and would use in-kind siding to replace. So just to make that note. Okay.
Anything else? All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I was just, I found it interesting that the chimney, the fireplace chimney in what is clearly an addition was so incredibly heavy. When I looked at this building, it seemed like it was out of proportion to, the architecture of the rest of the building. So I have no idea when it was put on. And it seems that it's going to be a little odd to have that center chimney that would be standard for a building like this to be gone, but have this other chimney there. And we just approved the removal of a chimney, literally on this street just down the way, but it went right through the addition and didn't have another chimney in the building. So I don't know, I found it odd.
I do. I'm struggling with this myself because the one that we approved last month, my feeling was that it, because of the way that an addition had been put on the house, had obscured the connection of that old chimney with its classic location right next to the ridge. And I thought that it was no longer in a logical location. And to me, I didn't see any particular argument to hold it in place. This one still comes through the roof right exactly where you'd expect to see it. And as you walk down the street, there are 4 other houses that you get to look at that all have that same, not exactly the same location, they're not exactly the same house, but have very similar chimneys in very similar locations. And I agree that the chimney from the early 50s is a heavy piece on this building. Yeah. I'm struggling.
Is that to give it the height? You think it's so heavy?
Well, the height is required, though. And maybe that's what it is because of the height. But the height's required because of
Right, because of the ridge.
code.
Just wondering why we
But that's
started.
what happens. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. It's the height.
Maybe they thought they needed to be bigger.
Yeah.
And we don't know how big the fireplace is on the inside, so they might have felt there would need to be some sort of correlation. I think this building is going to look a little odd, missing that center chimney with the existence of that other one sitting there. I have no problem with removing the shutters. I think that's fine. The condensers, fine. The windows, particularly the removal of the one on the second floor, I think is great. But, yeah.
Any other thoughts, questions? I just have one stipulation that any new wood shutters that you put on be installed the historically correct way so that that if you were, well, I don't know how to explain this. Mr. Adams probably can say it more succinctly than I.
You close them.
So that if you were to close the shutters, then the louvers would be pointing out.
That they would shed water.
They would shed water away from the building. A lot of times, I didn't note which direction these, I think the ones that are currently on here look to be installed the wrong way. So that as they're open, they shed water away, but,
They don't want them.
The preference would be to just remove them.
Except for the one, so you're gonna keep, I saw that there's the spec for a new window shutter and I
If
didn't,
we require it.
okay.
Right, right.
So you're not, I thought the ones on the front were being replaced, excuse me. So you're just keeping the ones on the front?
We would prefer to get rid of all the
All of them,
shutters.
yeah.
If you felt that it wouldn't be appropriate, we would ask that only the front ones be kept, but we would prefer to remove all but the shutters.
Excuse me, forgive
Thank
me. Okay, that's fine. Are there any other comments then about the shutters?
I have a question.
Yes.
So is the consideration for the commission that we're going to be indicating whether the shutters get kept or not as a part of this overall package? And the desire of the homeowner is that there wouldn't be shutters?
Correct.
I couldn't support that.
Yeah.
Might want to pull this.
Yes. Well, this one. Any other feelings? I mean, I think that my personal opinion would be to see the shutters kept on the front, which seem to be more appropriate, but the rest of the house are obviously later shutters unless I'm wrong. Any other thoughts?
Not leaving the topic of the chimney, it appears that the chimney is not in bad condition. It's not, there's no water coming in. This is a matter of internal reconfiguration. So I'm not seeing a reason to remove the chimney that revolves around protecting the building. That if this is a chimney that has been maintained and people continue to maintain it, it's not doing any damage to the house.
So, sorry, can we ask a question again? So just to confirm that the reason for the removal of the chimney is because you'd like to open up the interior?
We'd like to open up the interior, and we will not be using the chimney anymore for heating.
Right. All right, so do we have any particular stipulations that we've written down?
It would just be the commission's choice on the shutters, and then sort of the overall rest of the scope of work that's being presented.
Can I entertain a motion for this one? With stipulations for the shutters or clarification stipulation for the shutters and a stipulation that any closed up windows will have wood clapboard infill to match the walls.
So, all right, I'll give it a shot. So the motion would be to approve the installation of the two condensers, to eliminate the half-bath window on the lower level of the house and the bathroom window on the upper level of the house left-hand side, that those windows be infilled with wood clapboards to match the existing siding. That the shutters on the other three sides of the house could be removed. The shutters on the front of the house should remain and be replaced with the shutters that have been stipulated in the package, that they be hung in such a way that the rain shed away from the building.
No.
Yes?
No.
When closed.
If closed, but
If closed.
while open, they actually shade the water to the building.
Okay, well, open, Isaac will get that properly worded with you, okay. However, I cannot support and I am not recommending removal of the chimney. That is my motion.
I'll second that motion.
Any
Discussion?
Yes, although I don't think
Little.
you need to vote. I don't think
No.
you'll be voting on this one.
So, but do I get to discuss?
Not when we're in, not when
Okay.
we've got an open
Thank you.
motion. Sorry. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? Sorry, go ahead.
oh.
Go, go.
I don't feel as strongly about the chimney going away as other people do, and I would hate to, I see two different chimneys. I can't see the reason why, if we eliminate the one that is no longer in use, there's still a house with a chimney. The fact that there's two odd, chimneys that don't match each other on this house is, to me, is odd. So removal of one clarifies some of the logic of the house and its design. So I hate the fact that the chimney, not including the chimney, ended up in the stipulation. And I don't know how to go about voting in a manner which supports the statement I just made.
I understand.
Could we remove the chimney from consideration and have it come back separately?
Not in the motion as it is as it is on the floor, but the applicant is certainly welcome to come back yet again with any other information to ask again for removal of the chimney. I feel the same way, but I think that I don't want to vote against the motion, all the other things because of that, so.
Agreed, neither do I.
All right, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, chair votes aye.
So having said that, you did hear the part where Reagan said you could come back and ask again about the chimney.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Does that mean I have to reapply?
You would have to talk to Isaac about reapplying with the chimney.
Just the chimney?
Just the chimney is the only thing that we're not granting.
Okay.
So the chimney removal is what we're not granting. So you can talk to Isaac about it. Maybe you can talk with your designer to figure out if there's a way to potentially keep it.
Could putting a fake top be an option?
We have,
Put it in the application.
we can put it in the application and talk about it. We've had some mixed success with fake chimneys, so just in terms of longevity, they
There's
often
just
fail.
that the chimney literally runs right through where the kitchen is. Functionally,
Right.
it wouldn't work, so.
I think since we've already voted and closed on this, you can bring all of that information up to Isaac and work out maybe a
Okay,
resubmittal.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. 111 Gate
We're
Street?
done with that one. So number 11, last two admin approvals. Number 11 is 111 Gate Street. This project was before us 2 years ago. The original approval lapsed. They were just back last month and got reapproval for the exact same design. Since that reapproval last month, they have wanted to come back for a slight change to the rear and to actually add sort of another, or kind of bring the dormer from the right over to the left-hand side on the rear. And so we have that particular overview here. Of course, this is what was originally approved on the top, and then this is what they're coming back for. So just kind of
Okay.
bringing that over.
Any discussion on this one? All right. Everybody's fine with it? Let's move on.
Okay. That would bring us to item number 14, which is 222 Court Street. The applicant here is seeking approval for two sort of different scopes of work. The first being that they have a entrance to the basement that is routinely sort of taking on water, creating problems within the basement itself. Of course, debris can kind of gather in there as well. So they are hoping to actually get a cover for that, which would deter both of those items. And then the second component is to actually install a fire escape system from the second floor with a swing out ladder as well. And so the applicant here has provided information on the rescue balcony and then the ladder system. It's retractable, so it would not be out the whole time. And here is just sort of a diagram of what that balcony would look like. It's fairly simple. And then we do also have an update for the bulkhead covering. And I've got that in another document. Just 1 second. And so this would be the design for the proposed bulkhead covering. And as you can see, it can kind of open multiple ways to allow access down the stairs, as the staircase is a side entrance.
Any comments on this one?
I just had a question regarding the fire escape, because there is the window on the back side of the building. That I actually used to have a place on State Street with a similar configuration, and we put a rope on the back, a fire rope. So I guess I was just wondering if that had been considered versus putting a balcony. Like, is that balcony needed, or could you do something similar? But I'm not sure what the precedent is on the previous, since I'm still into this, so.
Given the,
All right, can you just introduce yourself?
oh, sure. Barbara Ward, I'm the Senior Grant Writer and Special Projects Associate, which puts me in charge of things like this, for the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire at 222 Court Street, and I live at 16 Nixon Park in Portsmouth. I kind of chuckle because given the demographics of our age demographics, I guess I would say, partly of our staff, it really felt that people just wouldn't be able to step from the window out onto the ladder. One option was to step directly to the ladder, but it was felt that that would just be too dangerous. And the intent here is both security and fire escape. We recently had sort of a security audit. These are difficult times, and for an organization like ours, we feel more vulnerable maybe than some. And when we had a session with someone from the police department here, we were talking about rapid exit and how that could be achieved from the building, especially on the second floor. Because right now it's kind of a dead end at the second floor, but it's not required because no one spends the night there. It's not an apartment. But with our planned reconfiguration of the use of the spaces, we're going to have about 5 of the staff members working upstairs. And so Keith Rifethan, who's not able to be here tonight, he's done a transformation of a sash window into a casement window. So we'll open like a casement window, but actually they transformed, and I put that in as a sample of how he would do it. And he said it actually works quite well, and you can put the panic bar on it and everything. But that would mean you're going to have to step up slightly on the inside. So we really wanted a secure landing on the other side, because otherwise you'd have to stand in that door and try to reach over. You're not on the floor there. So it really didn't seem particularly safe to do it that way.
The question was whether you could figure out some way, is that window on the rear over the...
Yes, it's on the rear over the garden. It's the only second floor window on the rear. So it's...
So, sorry.
It's right where the, to the left, right there, yeah. Is
So,
that the-
I'm sorry, the question was the window to the right of that window
On the
that
back side of
faces
the
the
building.
interior.
This.
Right.
Right there,
Correct.
that's a bathroom window.
Okay, so it's not the same.
It's a short bathroom window. There is a door up there, but because of the configuration of the, because another thought was to just put the pull-out ladder, but because of the size of the gutters, you can't easily step off that roof. I mean, we tried, I'll tell you, and there's just no way, I would have to step like that to reach the ladder, and that's just not really safe. And that would be pushing it. I might have to go even further, because you have to have at least a clearance of 18 inches in order to get your body down between where the ladder folds out and where the gutter is. Otherwise, there isn't room for you to physically go down. And so the step out was so large that it really feels like this is the only really safe alternative. Now, the fire escapes are certainly common on our street. It's not unusual to have them. There are a number of large buildings now that have been built on Court Street, and this is at the back of the building.
Okay, so my question then is, what is the precedent? Is this common precedent?
We
have one of these.
we've had one of these. We've had several other. I mean, we've had a variety of different fire escapes that we've approved and dealt with. It just kind of depends on the situation.
There's one at the other end of Court Street, near the Baptist Church. It's a red building, red and black. It's the one that's a hotel now. It has the exact same turnout system.
And we felt that by having the collapsible ladder, when it's collapsed, it just looks like another downspout, and that was going to be the least obtrusive.
And it can be painted to match the building. Yes, Mr. Adams.
I'm a little puzzled. Can you maybe go down one more? I'm sorry, one more after that? There we go. In the center at the bottom, or on the right-hand side of the bottom, what is that?
I'm puzzled by that too. I tried to go back. I tried to go back to the supplier to get him to explain it to me, because he gave me a left balcony when I needed a right balcony. So this gives you the idea of of what it is, but it actually won't. It'll be on the other side, and I wanted the door to not get in the way. The swing out door. So that's what we'd be making sure, that the door won't get in the way of your exit.
And it's just we're looking at it the wrong way.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll stand on my head.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I should have known you'd be smart enough to notice that.
Any others, Mr.
I take no objection from a historic standpoint, since it's in the back of the building. But I'd say, hopefully you won't install this thing, because you're putting people more in danger going out on this thing and climbing down than if you just sheltered in place. Fire department's a few doors over. So hopefully you won't install this, but I won't stand in the way of it being installed. And as for the basement covering, you'll just paint that to blend into the building?
Yeah. In the new basement, can you the bulkhead?
Yes, sorry, 1 second. There we go.
I'm hoping that the diagram makes it, what will happen is that slanted side will open to your right. And then the other section, which will be made to look falsely like it's a normal sort of bulkhead, will lift up and be held at a 90-degree angle so that you can go down into it. Everything will be painted the same color as the building.
And this is a kind of a common steel?
This is going to be wood now.
It's going to be wood, okay.
Yeah.
plywood,
There's,
It's pressure, well, we have,
that,
it's going to look basically like that. That's the one across the street.
that looks fine.
Yeah, it's just kind of stretched out a little longer.
Great. Any other comments on this one? I think I take some satisfaction in knowing that at least if this thing is installed with the collapsible ladder, it could be uninstalled very easily without any permanent damage to the building. So, all right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
all right.
Last one. That's the last one. All right.
That was the last one. I will try to run through them as quickly and as organized as possible. Please help me if I jumped off rail. We had a few back and forths. It looks like in our grouping that we did not approve already would start off with number 1, 28 Chestnut Street, and it looks like we approved that as presented. Item number 2, 36 Richmond Street, I have approved as presented with no stipulations. Then we jump down to item number 6, 526 State Street.
Sorry, can I just jump in for
Yep.
28 Chestnut Street? Just that we wanted it.
Oh,
at
yes,
5
sorry, the stipulation is that the gate would be moved back in the alleyway 5 feet
Just to
minimum.
have that on record.
Okay. Item number 6, 526 State Street, I don't have any stipulations. Item 7, 170 to 172 Gate Street, I don't have any stipulations there. Item 8, 44 Rogers Street, no stipulations. Item number 11, 111 Gate Street, no stipulations. And lastly, item number 14, 222 Court Street. It was just a stipulation that it be installed in a manner that if it's removed, it won't harm.
I
or
don't think you even need, that's
Okay,
just, I
fair
think that
enough.
it can be, I think we need the stipulation that it be painted to match the building.
Okay, so the stipulation would be that the bulkhead new covering matches the building.
And the.
Oh,
platform
and the platform and pull-out
ladder
stairs.
door.
Yep. Okay. All right. All the other items we approved separately. So with that, I'll let you guys take it away.
Motion to approve these.
I'll make a motion to approve with the following stipulations.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, chair votes aye. All right. Got through the admin approvals. All right. Let's do one, let's do our public hearing and then maybe have a quick break before the work sessions. So our first public hearing, our only public hearing of the night, is the petition of Brian O'Neill, owner, for property located at 6 Dearborn Street, which includes number 10 Dearborn Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure, number 10 Dearborn, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 123 as Lot 4 and lies within the General Residence A and Historic Districts. So who is here to present this? Please come forward. All right. So please, welcome, please introduce yourself.
Sam McCarker, and this is Michael McNeil with Stone Arts Development. Brian O'Neill had an unfortunate situation at UMass Lowell with his son. There was a shooter locked down, so he couldn't make it this evening. So we're here to answer any questions that the board may have, and just wanted to thank the board for taking the time to review the case.
Wonderful. Are either of you comfortable with presenting the project?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, number 10 is you have, everything's been uploaded to the portal. You could see where the existing structure, I believe is a cape, vinyl sided, built, I believe like in the 80s or something. And what we're proposing is what this board had suggested last time we're here, was raising the roof, turning it into a colonial, and actually restoring it, building it, getting rid of the vinyl siding, the windows using all historic appropriate materials to make it look like it's been there. So what we submitted, what we would like it to be with the details is also in your packet, so. I think really that's it, to take the cape and turn it to a colonial. And, eliminate the vinyl using all cedar and appropriate windows. We did add, and also if we missed anything, just let us know. We took a lot of notes, but, like the doors, they're sliders. There was a request to make those French doors with the grills. We've done that. We're going to take the posts, wrap those with cedar, give them a little more substance, because you see that not coming into town but leaving. You see that side of it where the deck is. So we'll enhance that. There'll be no shutters there. We did show shutters on the right elevation of the proposed plan, which is the driveway side, and then also the front elevation, which is really kind of looking at the house. It's sideways. It's facing like the rear of another home.
Okay.
And you could see there from the architect what that would look like. Be happy to answer any questions, and Michael's here if there's any technical questions.
Are there any questions? I know that they had a work session last week, so anything?
I'm
pick up on?
still very much in favor of the project. From a strictly aesthetic point of view, I have a problem with the underside of the porch, how it just, the pillars end in the grass, and it's not too dissimilar to the way it is today, and it's always looked to me to be very unfinished. And I wondered if you had given any consideration to a low, retaining wall or little knee walls, a little something that kind of finishes that back area. So instead
Under the deck, particularly
Under the
where the
deck.
posts come down.
Yeah.
So aside from beefing them up and making them a little more substantial, just
I mean, in my mind, it seems odd that you would walk out of the lower level of a house onto the grass. You would have like a little patio.
it's a poured concrete patio there now, which has a really nice crack in it. So that's going to need to be repaired.
So I'm thinking that given how lovely this house is going to be, putting a simple bluestone patio with
Absolutely.
a very low retaining wall just to finish it off would make it just look like it wasn't just an afterthought, that it really was intended to be a space where people would come out and they would sit down and they would enjoy themselves.
And I'll just point out that in the rendering,
It's missing.
it's missing the bases of the posts. So so in the drawing, there is actually a little bit of a base to the post there, although it doesn't show what the material of the,
What it's landing in, right?
Those might be there's those concrete pads that they did.
So basically what I
The
was showing you
footings.
was like taking the existing 6x6 posts, wrapping them in cedar, doing a nice base cap and a top cap on it, added some additional like bed molding around it, something you would see typically in that time period. So didn't translate well into the renderings themselves, but it is our intent to beef those up and to make them more aesthetically pleasing.
So what I would suggest is that if we approve this,
Yeah.
that you come back with an admin approval for what that lower patio is going to look like, and just.
Sure.
Because right now, in the rendering, it looks like grass, and in the architectural drawings, it really doesn't call it out.
I just question may not be within your purview or knowledge, or but that is on the water. So can we rip up that concrete pad and re-put something down, because you can't even cut a tree that's like within a certain amount of inches. So we're kind of restricted, and we do want to fix it up because it's just very old concrete that's cracked, and it should be repaired.
Sorry.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, although that may not be the purview of the Historic District Commission, This property is within our 100-foot wetland buffer, so as you mentioned, any disturbance, whether you're taking that out and adding something in, any disturbance will require, Conservation Commission approval.
All right.
So, and that would go for, any other exterior work, that would cause disturbance within this redevelopment.
Right. Okay.
So,
Sure.
yeah.
Which
so
we're gonna
that-
have to do anyway.
That's
Well,
exactly
it's part of
right.
the process,
Yep,
right.
so you just
Okay.
want to make sure that all gets together in your application when you go to them next.
I think it'd help if you had that written in your approval, if should it get approved that we do a patio there and a little retaining wall. I mean,
Sure,
it
I
would
mean-
be nice because then moving forward, we've already had the approval here.
It
so.
may be that as this develops, you will have a more advanced landscaping plan or something like that, and you'll want to put in walls or change materials, and if that's the case, all you have to do is come back to Isaac for administrative approval once this gets.
Perfect. Okay, great. We'll do that.
I just want to be, landscaping is not in our purview, correct?
Unless it is permanent landscaping,
Yeah.
so stone walls,
Yeah.
patio materials, things like that. Bushes and trees, no.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions on this project? All right, anything else you want to present or talk about?
No, I think that we've captured everything. Are we just not sure if we missed anything or not?
I mean, you've got some details in the elevations and the brackets, and I think all the materials are called out, so.
And it's all within compliance for building ordinances as well in regards to the elevations, the heights and everything. So we don't need any special exceptions or variances for that.
Okay, great.
Do I have the materials for the railing? Is it the same railing on the deck, or are you replacing that? Because I don't think I see.
I want to say the deck is AZEC on the base and the rails. I haven't been there on that
It
job.
does have composite railings, and I know part of what was talked about before is whether or not we can replace them with something more, conforms more with the area. I guess what we would like is some kind of direction as to what you would like to see there. We're not opposed to replacing the composite railing with something more within that area. I guess we're just, we need a little more information as to what you're looking for.
Well, since I didn't see any materials, it didn't tell me that you were changing anything. Are you changing anything to that deck, or is that one part of the house that's not being touched?
It is our intent not to if we don't have to.
Then you don't have to ask us for anything, and I don't need anything.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to point out our usual request, which is half screens on the windows.
We have that, right? Yep.
And with the shutters that are being installed, you heard me say earlier, just make sure, and you're using the, historic shutter dogs and hardware and all that stuff, so
Yes.
just make sure that it's installed the correct way so that if they were to be closed, then it would shed water away from the house.
Yep. So they're gonna be wood, we're doing the wood-right windows with, so yes, all similar things what we're using at number 6 Dearborn. We wanna mimic a lot of those same exact things on this building, so they look like they go together. They were built at the same time period.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm just I'm looking for a little clarification on why they need to come back if they're not proposing any kind of additional landscaping. And we're not making them,
No, this was totally if, it was an if.
okay,
If, okay.
If they change any of the landscaping, if they add a wall,
gotcha.
then all they need to do is come back for admin approval.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, let's open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to, for, or against this project? Anyone online? Okay, great. Close the public hearing and await a motion and findings of facts.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve this application with the stipulation of the half screens on the windows.
Second?
Great,
They do mention that.
yes. Okay. Just need some findings of fact.
Finding of fact, I'd like to say that it's consistent with the defining nature of the surrounding properties, and it has a compatibility with the surrounding properties.
Great, thank you. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. All right. Does anybody need, oh, it's only 8 o'clock. Does anybody need a quick break before we go to?
I'll take a quick break.
Okay. Let's take a quick break before our last 2 work sessions. back. And just a quick break. We're going to go down to the table. We have 2 more work sessions for the evening, and then some internal discussions for non-project things. Our first work session is a work session requested by Double MC LLC, owner for property located at 134 Pleasant Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, construct additions, and exterior modifications as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 116 as Lot 30 and lies within the Character District 4 and the Historic Districts. So let's all go down together.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Sorry I missed you last month.
Thank you for having us back. Well, we're back, just make sure everybody gets to hear us.
I watched the work session, so I am up to speed. All right.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us back for our second work session. I'm Tracy Kozak with Arcove Architects. I'm here with Marie Bodie of McNabb Properties. And we have made a lot of changes. So we took your comments to heart, and thank you for the feedback last time. Good comments, and we've taken a whole different approach to the massing, essentially, and the style. So the front few pages we went over in detail last time on the history, and I don't want to repeat it for those who may have already heard it, but there are some who weren't here last time that I'd be happy to go through, so looking for your preference as to how much detail I give on the
Yeah, I watched it.
on the front. You watched it. Okay, so, yep. The site has the Citizens Bank is on the property now. It was a grocery store in the 1950s and 60s, and before that there was a church and a gambrel house. So, the church burned down twice. There were 2 churches. One was wood, one was brick. They were Unitarian. The house was the Samuel Langdon house that was moved to Sturbridge Village, and there it lies today. Okay, so back to where we are today. As we discussed previously, the basic project is still the same, where it's an addition to the existing building and a renovation of the existing building. For a renovation for bank use, but also primarily to add a lot of co-living housing, which is driving the addition. So to the right of this plan on the page is the addition. Those green boxes are hipped roofed masses of forms. They are connected with a lower, smaller form, which is kind of like the bridge or the additions, and that is what actually literally bridges at the second floor only to connect to the existing building. So the drive-through stays in place where it is. Cars can drive all around and underneath that bridge connection. One of the struggles with, I think that everyone was having, is that it's an addition to a building which does not fit the district. It's, a 1950s mid-century building that was modified in the 80s. Doesn't match anything around it. You have the ultra important Langdon House across the street. So how do you add a Georgian reproduction to a 1950s supermarket? So it seemed a more sensitive approach would be to reduce the scale of where they touch with a bridge, and that bridge itself could perhaps be the midway peacemaker between the 2 fighting styles. So, the next few pages are showing the existing building and the work proposed, which is essentially to remove, there was a cladding added in the 80s. The original building, you can see the photos in the beginning of the packet, had a light colored stone. The photos are blurry, so I can't see the coursing pattern. But in the 80s, two different claddings were added. There was a dark gray granite veneer and a brick, like a black and red mottled brick, along with the canopies, the drive-through canopy and the, I guess I'll call it a pergola canopy, along the south and east facades. Those are proposed to be removed, the canopies. There's also what, you can't see this unless you're far away, but I think at one point there was a glass pyramid in the middle over what is now the lobby. At some point it leaked and they covered it with EPDM membrane, so that is proposed to be removed as well. New windows. Right now the second floor has virtually no windows except a couple on the back. We would like to add windows because of course this is going to be co-living on the second floor all around. The next couple of pages show the proposed addition in scale context with the surrounding streetscapes. These are 2D elevations to show height and massing compared to what's around it. And you can see, at least from these drawings, that we've broken down the massing so that it's lower and narrower in scale, and it respects the rhythms and proportions of the facades in terms of the sizes of the buildings. We went with the hipped roof instead of, say, a gambrel or a gable. We thought it respected the hipped roof of Langdon across the street, although we're not replicating it. We've turned it a little bit. We do have some rounded dormers at the two front gables. And on the lower drawing, you can see the bridge element which connects to the renovated existing bank building. Page H211 shows the back, the two, what we call two back sides. The one of the west site section, sorry about that. That faces the courthouse building, and beyond that is the fire station and, of course, the new housing building. There is a new stair and elevator addition. We did reduce that in size, in footprint. We tightened it up, so it's purely there for function, for fire egress and handicapped accessibility. So we just tightened up any excess space that wasn't really necessary, and we were able to squeeze that down in size a little bit. The bottom drawing is the side facing north. As I mentioned previously, it's hard to see this from any street because there are houses on Court Street that back right up to it with yards with fences, but that is what's proposed there. The next few pages are larger scale two-dimensional elevations. The top drawing on the left is the renovated 1950s bank building, and to the right are the additions connected by the bridge forms. And the backs. The next few pages are colored perspective renderings showing this project in context with the neighborhood. This is the 3D city model from the city website. And different vantage points. You can see it. The eave line of the roof is just a little bit lower than what's around it, so it does step down a hill. There's a massive grade change on this property. So the other big challenge of this is not just matching styles and forms with all the widely varying contexts, but we also have 6 feet of grade change from Pleasant Street to where we're touching against the existing building, and then it continues down another 3 feet beyond that. So One of the things we're still working on, of course, is figuring out how to get we're figuring out the grading. We're working with the civil engineers for the site plans at this time, and they are establishing the grade required for the drive-through, the parking, so that we can, and also so we can get handicapped accessibility into the buildings. Yet we still want our windows to be above ground for the people inside to be able to see outside. So that's why the windowsills right now are quite low. Love to be able to get those a little bit higher, but again, we have to work with the civil engineers to see how high we can get the grade to make sure we're still handicapped accessibility. So work in progress. There's a ton of detailing that we haven't really begun to even think about. The materials are just some vague notions, but we're looking for your feedback and suggestions, and primarily looking at this as a concept of a collection of little hip buildings connected by a bridge structure attached to a renovated 1950s building. So this is our attempt to try to blend it all together in a harmonious way, and we look forward to your comments and questions.
Thank you. Yeah, this is certainly a challenging site and context, and so, who would like to chat? That's fine. This is the most sensitive one, so I'm just going to speak to that. Anybody would like to start off? Reactions to this new plan? Yes? Martin?
I appreciate the restart, and I appreciate the new approach. I think while this is safer, I think it's more appropriate for the surrounding context, and I think this is good architecture and appropriate for the historic district. The only real concern I have at this point in time is that it seems to be like a split personality between the existing bank and the new addition. And I was wondering if it'd be a possibility to just have some threads tie through to where there's a bit of there's not just a distinction, between the two that is very hugely distinct. You got the modern right next to a more traditional, and it'd be nice if maybe they had some unison. That would be the only criticism I have of this. Because your traditional has got some elements of it that are very bold, and I wouldn't want you to carry that across to the old bank. That wouldn't seem appropriate, but maybe just a material palette or something that creates some sort of the word I'm trying to get is like just unification.
Yeah.
Some cohesion. Good word.
She's good too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, this is challenging. Got it. Do they teach this kind of architecture in school? No, because this isn't. I find myself thinking about, Christopher Wren. It's just people that had big, bold ideas and big, bold moves and controlled whole streets with their buildings. This isn't that. This is a thing that I think we're supposed to be trying to work on to make something fit. So we have to give up on those big, bold moves because we have a higher calling. We want things to fit in and reflect well in their neighborhoods. With that said, I appreciate the way that you've done this. I recognize the recessed sections that you utilized a couple of places on Court Street. It's sort of like this is your hand. I can see that. And surrounding this base plate with these elements there's a rhythm to it. And it's not a rhythm that we see intentionally in the streetscape, but we see elements of it. I think this is going real well. And sort of like Mr. Ryan, when we get to that front waterside facade where we see this new collection and the old building or the existing building, and it just falls so hard. It makes me think maybe I'm wrong about this thing that we should be doing. It just falls so hard. And I wonder, did you entertain by putting a couple of new facade elements on this long, low, linear building, or did you just say it should set like it is?
That's one way to look at it, but honestly, what I've had in the back of my mind as a next step, depending on how close or not we are, is there's an opportunity to take what I call that bridge element with the, the red banding. It's red banding. It looks like red banding. It's supposed to be copper, but that maybe could morph a little bit more to relate to what we're pulling out on. We're kind of redefining that second story. We're restoring the storefront facade with all the glass, but the second story of the bank is all brand new. It didn't have any glass before. So we're putting in windows, we're putting in a cornice, we're dropping some freeze bands around it. It's all new cladding. That, I think, is the opportunity to tie in to this bridge thing that threads its way around. We started to hint at that. It doesn't perhaps show clearly in these renderings, but we were thinking of using possibly a material for cladding of this bridge element. Like in this, we were trying to show zinc. So on the historic Pleasant Street side, it could be a shingle, a zinc shingle. It's a modern material, but it's kind of a historic pattern. But then as it goes across the bridge, perhaps it becomes more panelized, and when it gets to the modern building, it can be planks or some different pattern. Same material, different scale, different pattern. The brick box elements with the hipped roofs, I think those need to be more sacred to the historic, but the little pieces that weave around it, the ones that actually touch that modern building, I think that's the thing that needs to blend more, because that's actually where the point of contact is. Maybe it's the little window panes that need to change or something. Or maybe it's a gradual, maybe it's a gradient, so as you get closer to the new building, the scale of the window panes change, or the scale of the siding pattern changes, or something like that.
You have ribbon windows versus punched windows. Yeah, and that's part of the difference.
Margot, excuse me.
So I had some of the same reaction, and I was focusing on that bridge, and it felt as if, because of the windows, you went directly from 50s to traditional. And I would focus there on making that something more industrial, more 1950s. And the buildings to the right, the hip to the right, and the bridge to that look great. It's the hip in the middle with the tiny window. That's the element to me that isn't helping with the bridge. It's almost as if it's too traditional too soon, perhaps, and it doesn't quite fit with the hip and the beautiful arc of the sort of arts and crafts that you have. The eyebrow window. That's not an eyebrow window in the middle. It comes from, I don't know where it comes from. So I think you've got a great idea of going sort of like grading yourself from, I'm going from the 1950s and then I'm heading backwards, but I'm heading backwards to something that has a modern feel to it. Because you do have sort of a modern feel to this. It's not exactly traditional anything. It has elements, different elements. So I like what you're doing with the building on the corner and its bridge, and it's those two in the middle that I think need some some work. And then my thoughts on the side on Pleasant Street. We talked about this last time, that I thought that was one of your biggest challenges. And now I went back and looked at the grade, so I can see definitely where the challenge comes. And then you talked about how do you get people in there who can comfortably live there, with their windows and privacy and that sort of thing. I felt that if you, and it's hard for me to tell how far back from the sidewalk this building sits right now. So I'm just going to say what I'm going to say, and it may be already far enough back. But I thought if it had enough room that you could put some really good screen, eventually mature trees, some good bushes, some green space, you would provide a buffer to the people who are living there. You would provide a visual softening of this larger building as people walk down Pleasant Street. It would, like I said, provide a little bit of privacy for the occupants. And when you look down Pleasant Street as it gets more residential, you have more trees out front. You have the building set a little bit further back, where this part, which is so close to the edge of downtown, is right up. It's either right up on the sidewalk, or the walls, the fencing is right up on the sidewalk. And then as you go further down, it opens up a little bit, and then it comes back down again. So I think you have so much variety on this street as you walk down the length of it that you can draw from a lot of different elements. But those are the ones that I would pick out, would be to try and soften that with some landscaping, and maybe your civil engineer will help you figure out how to do that.
That's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to say one of the other changes we made was to rotate the facade to align with Pleasant Street instead of aligning with the building behind it, which I think makes a big difference. It is set back 10 to 15 feet from the sidewalk, and it would help resolve the grading issues a lot to do either a low fence or a hedge or something. Like, yeah, you do see across the street, there's a whole
There are lots of
lot
fences
of fences
here.
And that would allow us to get the grade to match the windows a little better, and it could, yeah, I think we could look at some different options on that. There is space to do that.
And of course, with Terrence Parker as part of our development team, you know that the landscaping is going to be mature when it goes in, not just waiting 10 years for it to create.
Twigs. Anybody else want to comment? Yes, Susan.
So some of my thoughts were already touched on. In the landscaping in particular, because there's a monolithic quality to the bank side of the story. And so there's that combination of residential and commercial. And I was wondering about, could there be, the landscaping is really important to break up all of that monolithic aspect, but what about awnings or something else that kind of makes it less of a structure from outer space? It's just how it strikes me. There's this thing that got planted there, and I feel like that not a lot would need to be done to differentiate it in a way that's more neighborhood friendly. That makes any sense.
I think we can certainly start looking at some details to add the scale. I think what's missing from these drawings is that extra level of detail and texture, because
It's fine, we're still in concept.
yeah, but that's a good point. That adds the human scale to it. That, along with some landscaping and fences, can soften it.
Yeah, I definitely think this is a tricky project, obviously being in the historic district with Citizens Bank, that old 50s brutalist, kind of style. Because we want to make sure the story's there, we don't want, I always struggle with new construction in the historic district because we want it to fit the fabric, but I don't want it to be a fake story, I don't want it to be like, oh, that was built there when the Elks Club was across the street, But I think we're heading in the right direction where it's a nice balance in between. There's a good flow to it, but I agree with Commissioner Ryan that some of those more elements could increase that flow. The grade makes it a little tricky, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
Anyone else?
I'll just comment.
Okay. I think this is a huge improvement. I think it's a tough project, but you're making it feel more like a Portsmouth project than the airport style that we all complained about last time. I think the hard part's going to be combining the two, but I like the bridge idea, and I think we're coming close to molding the two. I'm not sure you can really have true consistency because it's two huge different buildings, but I think as we get close to it and as you hit that bridge, that's where the consistency is going to show.
I'll comment, thanks. I agree. I think it's a huge improvement from what we saw last week. And it does look like a building I would say would think would be in Portsmouth, at least the newer piece of it. My comment, or I agree with the blending. There's an opportunity somehow to do that. I like the bridge idea. It does remind me, I think Larry mentioned Newport Wharf last time, and so I see that. But the cornice line is what I think maybe could be, that looks so modern to me, and I don't know if, and I'm not an architect, but to me that's what is a glaring difference.
Which building?
Of the Citizens Bank existing building. It just looks, that still looks very modern, and then the harsh change. So I love the new building. My personal preference would to see some of those elements going into the existing building to blend it, so.
Got it. Yep. Okay.
That's
Makes
just my
sense.
2 cents.
Yeah.
Not really designed, I'm sorry, but I just caught on that the exit for the drive-through is that narrow little slot that you've left between your new building and the existing fence of the parsonage.
Vice versa, that will be the entrance. So
It's the entrance.
yeah, so you'll come in off of Pleasant behind, between the fence.
That makes more sense, because it seemed like a cruel way to try to get out.
Well, it's still very narrow, but it works better with the flow of the front parking area. So
One of the comments too, I don't know, like if it's the roof or, just some elements, I think, of that building that I really like it now. So, to somehow blend it, I think would be really good. Opportunity, so.
All right,
Sure.
So I think this is the opposite of what you're hearing from some other commissioners, but the 1950s cornice that exists now, just the balcony, I think of it as a balcony, the very 1950s, I would carry that into the next bridge. Right now you have a angled roof, right? A traditional angled roof.
flip it. Yeah, that
To take that cornice and
came
go
from
ahead.
that photo, rendering of the prototype, the grocery store, the First National. And then we also have the fence, the decorative railing behind it a little bit. It's not precisely this, but it's the same gist. But I see what you're saying, Margot, about carrying the blend.
The blend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That fence that you're talking about is quite a distance in from the edge of the roof.
It is. We can move it. There's just no exact magic to where that is.
Okay.
But do you think it's in the right spot?
I for the pedestrian experience, it probably is. I don't know about that review in plate that we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put in my 2 cents,
Let's hear it.
unless anybody has any more. So I think the challenge you have here is blending, is this giant parcel that is, you come down on Pleasant Street where everything is very residential and you turn the corner and then suddenly you're commercial, and institutional. You've got bank / old grocery store, you've got the courthouse, you've got the middle school, so it's a weird transition that you're trying to achieve. And add on to that again, like you said, you've got this weird 1950s building that, doesn't really fit in anywhere. So, so it's a really challenging site. And I think that one of the challenges is not only reflecting the original intent and design of the existing building, but also trying to turn that into something that's supposed to be residential, which it never was designed to be. So I think that there are some softening elements you can put into that building to still blend it and make it appear a little bit more residential, because that's what it's going to be. And still, again, I totally agree also with the blending back and forth with some of those elements to make buildings as a whole kind of fit together and talk to each other. So the existing building has those challenges, the challenges being that it doesn't look, it's not a residential building, but I think that we probably want to make it seem residential if that's what it's going to be. So maybe it is breaking up some of the ribbon windows, maybe it is adding a few, again, softer elements to it to make it sort of speak a residential language. I'm because of that and because of the stark contrasts we're seeing, not a fan of the little porthole and eyebrow windows. I think that it's just, it's like a traditional element. We're just gonna plop that on here because we wanna make these look more traditional. So I would love to see those go away. I don't think that they go there. I don't think they belong there. They also, we've seen a few of those around on a hipped roof around town, not on residential buildings. So, or I guess, there's one on the Popovers building on the corner there that's like, I don't know. So I think that some of the simplification of those buildings, of the new buildings, to try and keep some of the traditional forms, the push and pull. I think that, what Mr. Adams was saying earlier is, the inset and outset, the sort of that rhythm that you're getting in the massing, I think can be successful there. But I think that, again, we've got to get into some of the detailing of these, the materials and making sure those blend. I'm a fan of either taking a traditional form and putting more modern materials on it, or taking a modern form and putting traditional materials on it, so that you're getting that blend. It's not a fake old building trying to pretend to be something that was built 150 years ago, but it's trying to capture the form and context of what's around it. So it's one of my typical rambles right there, but I think that you could go in the right direction. I do think that the idea of extending some fencing on Pleasant Street, you've got lots of fencing on Pleasant Street, why not continue it along there? And again, just really try and work on this residential language and what that means for both the new buildings and the existing buildings. Does that make any sense, or is helpful at all?
I think so.
Okay.
Can I just?
Yes.
Are you done?
Yeah. Just cut me off. Just
I didn't mean to.
Please.
Yeah, you take away I'm going to call them barrel dormers. You got to have something up there. So maybe there's something a little more streamlined that relates back to the other side of the building. But Joy alluded to it. I think some lines have to continue across, some visual lines, some sort of, because right now they're just sort of smacking it. There's a wall, and all the lines on each side stop.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
You're right, yep.
And just, did you put a hip roof on the modern building?
We do have a version of that. We've tried everything. The smashing bridge, we raised it 6 feet, like in the day before this went out, because we realized we had some level egress things going on, and we also had to get these like cars under the bridge. So we raised it to match the second floor of the addition as opposed to the second floor of the new building. And then nothing aligned anymore. So we do have to take another look at that. I agree.
I mean, you do have a very traditional railing at the very top of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Looks like something that you would see across the street. Anyway.
Okay. Any other? Yes?
I do understand what your comment about the barrels and the windows. I understand. But we could reduce the need for those if we could reduce the size of those hip roofs. But I think those roofs are doing a lot of work for us here. And I think that they're important. And yet, I don't want to be a shingle advertisement. So I can appreciate the hand that put those things there. I mean, across the street, the Langdon has a couple of, they're handsome little Luther windows on the roof, and they work. It also has a balustrade on the roof, and it works. These don't have the chimneys, and we're not trying to make a replica, but the conversation should be somewhat the same. And it's a good-sized roof across the street. It's a good-sized roof in the housing just up the street from these. The roofs are important, and I think that something on the roofs is also not required, but the dressing. I agree, the massing argument and conversation should be worked hard, because that's what we're really going to live with. But what we appreciate from the sidewalk is the dressings. And dressing modern things old and old things modern, I understand the conversation, but those things have to be done. I think they have to be done best to sound designs, though. And again, I think the roof mass is required.
No, I totally agree with that.
Not trying to argue, but just.
And Martin said the same thing. So something, I'm not a fan of
Then
those
it must
things,
be
but
wrong.
Something. No, I think, point taken, something has to go there.
One last thought about your comment about an industrial building not being a residential building. I would just like to point out Walter Gropius and his buildings of this era that were all residential buildings, and how you can have ribbon windows on a residential building. So while I understand what you're saying, I am such a fan of.
Scale's a little different with his
The scale
houses,
is
but-
definitely different, but keeping in mind that form does exist in architectural history in the United States, may actually help Tracy come up with some other ideas.
Okay. Anybody else? Any last thoughts? All right. Do you have any other questions for us?
No, this is great feedback. There's a lot to go back and fine tune and take a closer look at. I appreciate the comments. They're really helpful.
I do want to ask anyone from the public who wants to come and comment on these things. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come up and?
I'm Peter Smith, 206 Court Street. I think you guys did a much better job on this design, substantially. I think the old versus new, I mean, there's a part of me that says just own it, right? How do you establish what the old actually was and use the bridge as not just literal, but figurative? And the other point that I wanted to make was, I think the greenery on the front side on Pleasant Street is incredibly important. It just, I think what you're losing by developing this space is a lot of green space. And putting a little bit back in, some sort of screen, is beneficial. And I think it would also pull your attention away from the mass that is sort of looming over you and focus it more on the more consequential building on the other side of the street. You don't tend to look up at things through trees, but in the absence of trees, you tend to turn around and say, let me look at this building. So trees actually would change the habit of the pedestrian walking by and refocus the attention. So that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone online?
I do, yes. Aaron, if you can hear me, you are all set to speak.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, hi everyone, this is Erin Prue, 99 Martin Ave and 118 Pleasant Street. And I really appreciate this new design in comparison to what was presented last time. I think the stepped roof lines and the variation from the street with certain portions of the building being stepped back is nice looking, tasteful looking, and definitely more appropriate. The building overall still feels, as far as massing, very, very large and kind of in your face right on Pleasant Street. I know, I think maybe Tracy mentioned that it's stepped back 10 to 15 feet from the sidewalk. It's a little hard to picture that in looking at these, but I do think that, you know, right now when you're coming up and down Pleasant Street, it's very residential feeling. Our building, even though it's our office, it's like a second home. It feels like a home. It looks like a home. And all up and down this stretch of Pleasant, you've got just more of that vibe and feel. And so with this building being set right there, and I apologize, this probably is repetitive with some of the comments that were already made, but I do think it would make an enormous difference if it was, you know, just set back enough where you could have some sort of green space. And I know that the owner does work with, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but the landscape architect that you were referring to before. So hopefully that could be incorporated into it. But I do really appreciate this new style and design. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Isaac?
I don't have any more raised hands on Zoom, so I will assume that we are good on Zoom.
All right, great. Well, would you like to continue this to
Yes.
next month?
Of course.
Okay, great. Can I have a motion to continue to next month, please?
Motion to continue.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
All right, our last work session of the night is work session requested by Brian T. and Kyle M. LaChance, owners for property located at 86 South School Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, construct side entry room with stairs to the backyard, install new fencing, and install new condenser unit as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 101 as Lot 63 and lies within the General Residence B and Historic Districts. Hi, welcome. Thank you for sticking it out. It's not too late.
Oh,
The
actually,
grand scheme of
better
things.
than we thought, so we thought we were going to be in about another hour, so you guys were pretty efficient. So,
Please introduce yourselves.
yeah, Brian LaChance, and sorry for being a little bit formal. We don't need the middle initials, it just happened.
And I'm Kyle LaChance.
And my wife Kyle. Thank you for taking the time to help us with this project, to understand the requirements and the needs of Portsmouth and the Historic District. Our intent really is to try to keep the house and the look as historic as possible, while trying to improve the function of the house. We've got a dog that's 4 years old, and he tracks mud directly into the house right now, and he has no yard, what to speak. If you go by there, you'll see he's tethered to a chain to the deck today. A cable, because he broke the chain. He's a rather large, 80-pound dog, very friendly, but also very excitable.
So we want to try to improve the functionality of the house and as well as try to improve the look of the house. So what we want to do is we want to add a porch to the side of the house that you can see right there, replacing the a mudroom, a porch, and an entryway, replacing the existing deck. It would be basically 1 foot wider than the existing deck. The existing deck's 5 feet, and I think 14.5 feet long. This would be 5 feet and 15 feet long. The deck doesn't go quite to the rear corner of the house. We would want to match up to the rear corner of the house. The purpose of the back little deck on that is just so that we have an adequate exit, as well as the access to the basement is right where, so we can't just have stairs come off and turn. They have to go out a little ways, otherwise we block the current access to the basement. Along with doing that, and by the way, one of the pictures in there is a picture from the Athenaeum of a deck, entryway actually being on that side of the house. So historically, it's kind of correct that, you know, something was there. We want to put something back. Along with that, we have a flat roof over, the house was built in 3 sections. The original house, we think in the late 1800s, late to mid 1800s. And then they added a kitchen, bump out, and then they added another bedroom downstairs and a dining room. When they did the kitchen, they put a traditional roof on it. When they did the dining room and the additional bedroom, they put a flat roof on it. The flat roof leaks water, as you might imagine. I've resealed it. I shouldn't say we've had it resealed. I've resealed it at least twice, always with the effort of hoping to replace it. So when we build the addition or the entryway, it will have a traditional roof on it. And then to line up with a roof on the back side of the house, we'd like to put a traditional sloped roof on the back side of the house, eliminating that flat roof. There is a window on the back that is a non-historical window. It was added at the time the house was renovated in 2014? 13.
I remember that.
So it's not a traditional window at all. It's just your typical double pane, window. We'd want to replace that with a half-size window, just the upper half, still functioning as an opening because we'd need to have air go through that window because it's the only window on the upstairs in the backside. So just for airflow, we'd want to replace that with an existing window, with an opening window. The other things we'd like to do is the fence and close in the area for the dog, as well as we have a couple of cameras up where we've noticed that we get triggered alerts all the time. Well, I won't say all the time. Occasionally, people passing through between our house and the house next to us to go to the apartment complex.
There's a park across the street from us, and they're parking there, and they'll go to the apartment building next to us.
And we'd just like to improve our security and our privacy just a bit when it comes to that. We'd also tear up all of that area that's there right now is pavement. We would tear up a good portion of pavement and put in some porous material as far as the patio goes to try to get a little bit. We don't have a water problem, but we don't want a water problem, right? Try to get a little porous material back into that area. Along with that, the other thing would be on the side of the house. We'd like to eliminate the window air conditioning units. They actually go in the front of the house on one window and the side, which is the street-facing side, on the other. We think it would be a big improvement to just put in a condensing unit there. And the reason it's on the side and not the back is primarily because if we put it on the back, then we'll have all of this channel work. As we've all seen, we'd have all that channel work going around to where the actual mini splits would sit. This would have minimal channel work because if we can go through the wall, it goes into a closet, which then could go up to the mini splits and try to eliminate a lot of channels. So that's the reason for the side. Other than that, we want a transom window on the other side of the house where the new entryway is, up high just for light. And that would be a transom window, again, that could open and close so it would have an outdoor screen on it, but a fixed screen. And the doors, we'd like to match the doors as closely as possible to the front door, which is the door that we think's been there for an awful long time because it's it's a little leaky, a little drafty, but we love the door, so we don't want to change the door.
Well, it also provides with some visibility, because right now the side door,
Is
I
solid
can't
door.
see who's outside. Yeah.
So that's kind of the scale of what we'd like to do, and I'd like to have your thoughts on,
Yeah.
what you'd like to see as part of the project.
Any thoughts? It seems like a very simple and straightforward project, really, compared to things that we've seen. So this is
Compared to what we saw tonight, yeah.
This is, I think you guys are going about it in a very, logical way. Anybody have any comments or suggestions?
Anytime you can get rid of a flat roof, and
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the New
blend
England.
those roofs, I think that will work out nice.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this property. I used to live next door in the what's gray apartment now. It used to be was green when I lived there. So very familiar. Used to look out at that little boat there.
Yeah, the
But,
door will go away as well.
Yeah, one of the things that
Yeah.
all my space for storing stuff is going away, so
Yeah.
all of my toys have to kind of get condensed.
Did you walk through their property?
I did. No, I didn't. I went to the other guys. Went to Peter Rice's back there. No, but I mean, you showed the historic photo from the Athenaeum. That there was a little bump out there.
Yep.
So I mean, you're keeping it genuine with the history of the house. The history's all there. I don't. As far as like the little unit, the little condenser unit outside. Yeah, I'm all for whatever is the least amount of conduit wrapping around the
Yeah,
building.
that was our intent.
Those lines really hard to ignore.
They break up the flow of the whole house if you,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
tough.
And I understand, that you're right on the corner, so it's somewhat visible, but
Yeah.
that's not a concern to me.
And if there are lines outside, at least that's where the electrical comes down and everything comes
Yeah.
down. So there's already some breakage in the side,
Yeah.
the facade. So, we'll keep it as, we don't want it to look any worse than the power lines do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll keep it as consistently.
I guess my only question would be, is the trim going away there between the main structure and like where?
And here we show it going away.
Yeah.
We'd like it to, but there's a difference in about 1.5 inches
Okay.
between one facade and the other. So when we tear it apart,
Yeah.
to do the addition, if we can reduce the one side, we will. If we can't, then it'll still have to stay out about 1 inch.
Yeah.
1.5 inches. We have one contractor that kind of proposed that we try to level that whole wall out. But I don't want to have to add 1.5 inches to 34 feet,
Yeah.
right? So, we'd love to do that if we can make that, and we'd actually like to improve the facial board, because if you notice that one of it's very old historic and then the other one's a flat square.
Yep.
If we can get that to look consistent, we will. Again, it's going to be, once we start taking that apart, what they find.
My opinion, on the other hand, is to retain that corner board. And so the building will always read like the house and
The
the
addition.
shed addition. It not only just tells a comforting story for me, an old man, but it also provides a visual separation between the two elements so that the house stands much more proudly. Another thing.
I do like that point of view.
Well, I've cultivated this. But another thing, sort of in hand with that, is that the addition is in the way we to speak of these things, as a dependency. The house is the primary piece, and that's what we should celebrate, so to speak, with its own defining corners and its own roof and cornice work. The dependency always is a little bit less, providing for the house being the element. And so the roof trim on the dependency, while it could be similar and certainly painted in the same scheme, but usually smaller, usually not more delicate, but doesn't have the presence of the overhang that's on the house. It won't have the same size bed molding underneath it. All of these things are scaled down to describe that as the back of the house, which it more than figuratively is.
Right.
And So I'd like to see these things remain, and I also believe that the shed should have its own defining corner boards also, so that these things, so that it looks like part of the house, but the house is being presented as the feature.
Yep, but you're, as to your point, then you see kind of the progression of the changes to the house, and it's, I will say, evident enough, but not distracting.
Evident enough, but not distracting. Yes. Yes. I'm good.
Anyone else?
This is a work session, right? Okay. I agree exactly with where you went. Because I'm looking at this. This is not the house that this is. And so got to figure that out in my head. I just feel like the shed massing coming in is very far into your original house, and that maybe you should have that strong cornice come around at the same level and hip back to the corner, so that it looks more formal than, this looks very modern.
Yep, and we can do that. The only issue with that, quite honestly, is then you would have water falling on the front steps compared to this would shed it all off.
Which gets to my next
which
comment.
is doable, but that was the reason for the design that way.
Well, the next comment is you have a very formal cap in the entrance and that. And I think you should have a secondarily formal, but formal entrance
Okay.
there.
It's also a good, I'd like to.
So
I
that-
mean, especially if we're going to change the roof line, I think that would be appropriate.
That's my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions? It's, like I said, it's very straightforward. In terms of the fencing and, the yard work, great, do it, do what will work for you. I mean, I think you can look around the neighborhood to see what kind of type of fencing.
Yeah, there's two different, we'll either match the one that's right existing, which is, she's got both pictures.
This is our next door neighbors,
Yep.
and this is the one that's behind where
Yeah.
the apartment.
I mean, so those.
So we're debating which one we like, which one we
Yeah.
want to match.
I like this one, he likes
Yeah,
that.
so, I mean,
We're not going to take sides.
no, so I mean, you can bring all of that information. I mean, we see those all over the district, so those should be fine.
It'd be lovely to have a Portsmouth fence, but we don't.
I know, we don't. And let's see, do you have any other elements that haven't been discussed? No, I don't think so. So I think you've gotten some good comments here. So hopefully, I don't think you'll need to come back for another work session. You can just have some things drawn up, and then if you're still unsure about how you want to treat, the side entry door or anything like that, you can always talk to Isaac and get what we call a work session / public hearing, so that we can have kind of a quick mini meeting at the beginning and then go into a public hearing and vote. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, you can.
Yeah, so far, what I've heard here is very, it's consistent with what we want to do, and I think they're great ideas. So
Okay, great.
as long as I can incorporate this into the plans, the biggest problem is I'm not when I saw that last,
Yeah.
Drawings,
I mean,
Yeah.
this is a little guy on
Yeah.
an Apple MacBook over there trying to figure out how to make this work, so.
And you can work with Isaac, we do want to see some sort of floor plan, some elevation, drawings and mock-ups. If you have any detailing, like if you're going to change the fascia board or anything like that, at least, kind of show what you're going to do,
Yep.
where and stuff like
Yep,
that.
I
So,
will.
so that we have all of the information we need, and it's all on record, so that when you build it, it's, can be checked in as good to go.
Are you doing it yourself?
The building, no.
Okay, so.
The planning of this and the design of this was, we met with several builders, we got their feedback, put together the design, shared it with them. One of them has backed out because he lost staff, but,
I was just thinking that, you know, the builder is going to do some construction drawings for himself, and that might help inform some of your package.
Yeah.
If you wanted to engage somebody at this point, something to think about.
perfect. Yeah, we wanted to know where we were. So this has been a positive experience.
Okay. Great. Any last comments or questions?
Online.
Sure, yeah, and there's no one here from the public to speak, but if there's anyone online,
Nope.
that would be great. All right. Great.
So there's an
Thank you.
advantage to going last.
Yes. All right, great. So let's close, unless you want to keep this open, then we can close the work session and then you can come back later. All right, so can I get a motion to close this work session?
So moved?
Seconded?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you very
Good luck
much.
with everything.
Have a good night.
All right, we can stay here. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about our certified local government certification, which we are now, and it's great. I did sit in on a sort of a info session with Brandy Laughlin, who is the CLG representative with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, or our State Historic Preservation Office. She basically went over what is presented in these slides that we have attached here. So if hopefully you've been able to take a look through that. Essentially, what the CLG is that, you know, we've met certain obligations and thresholds to be recognized by the National Park Service as a certified local government, meaning we've got, you know, the Heritage Commission or Preservation Commission, Historic District Commission, all of these things that are, you know, we take our heritage and preservation planning seriously. And so that opens us up to grant money that is available. There is a certain percentage of the money that goes to the State Historic Preservation Office that must be given to local communities. So there's a certain amount of money, at least it's there this year, that is there and available to any of the communities that are CLGs. There are two different types of grants. There's a regular CLG grant, which is this first one, and that covers things like historic survey or preservation projects that are in town, that are in our district, that would help enhance the district. You know, off the top of my head, I can think, like, there's a stretch of, that whole stretch of Islington Street hasn't been surveyed. We don't have any forms, not even from the 80s, from when the Portsmouth Advocates had done their initial survey of the South End and a lot of the historic houses around town. So, you know, in the future, if we wanted to hire a consultant to come in and add to at least our understanding by, you know, looking at each building on Islington Street, giving, you know, a basic historic understanding, you know, timeline, look for any basic research historic photographs and put that all together so that when we're reviewing a building, we can easily look to that and say, like, okay, this building actually dates to this, and here's what it used to look like, and here's why it may be historically significant, or man, it's really changed and it's not really significant anymore. So there are those types of grants. The other grants that they have are these National Association of Preservation Commission camps, that they have these sort of mentoring programs, or they come in and, you know, we would have an entire day of workshop where we could choose, there's a whole range of different topics if we wanted any training, you know. So do we want training on our process and legal processes to make sure that we're making sound decisions that, you know, are less likely to be legally challenged, thank you. Or do we want to have, you know, and we could have a session on modern infill, where they talk about, like, here's an example, or here's a project, let's pretend that modern infill is gonna go here. What do we wanna see? What should we see? What do we expect? What don't we wanna see? And have professional training in that. There, you know, if you go to, I think you can click on the NAPC website in there and get a whole list of different topics that we could be trained on, which I think is never a bad idea. Even, you know, if those of us who've been on this for a long time get kind of in a rut or in a groove, or kind of forget that, wait, maybe there's a better way to do this. Maybe there are other ways that we should be considering our decisions. We want to make sure that we are consistent, that we are running our meetings the right way and consistently, that any of these different, you know, if we want to talk about windows, or if we want to talk about certain things like chimney removals, that we want to, you know, really talk about and get into, so that we know what the stance that we have going forward. So those are the two different options. If anyone is interested in helping out to write a grant proposal, the letter of intent is due on October 1st, so we could, I'm happy to, if it, move anything forward, if anyone is interested in going forward with either of these options, to help put together a letter of intent by October 1st. But this, you know, generally is money that's available and ready for us. You know, there's a match to the NAPC camp grant, which is really, can be done in kind with, you know, the cost of maybe reserving this room and having some refreshments. You know, it's not really like it would come from our city budget. It could be in-kind things. So any thoughts or comments? Does anybody have any interest in any of these things? Would we like to have some training? Or would we like to try and go for inventory? Or do we not want to deal with it this year and wait till next year?
How much money are we talking about?
They're
Right,
generally.
it's worth our time.
Yeah.
Money.
The mini grant for the camp funding is $7,000, but, you know, the regular CLG grants could be, you know, up to $20,000. You know, it depends on how many, it depends on how much money they have and how many people are vying for that money.
So I think that there would be value to having an extension of the survey down Islington Street, because I think it then puts Islington Street on the same basis as, you know, we're making our decisions on the same basis as we're making it for others. I know that there's been concern expressed about certain other neighborhoods that are not currently in the district, and I think that one of the initial, I wouldn't call it a hurdle, but one of the initial information points that anybody should have available if you want to consider even proposing that a section of town be included in the district is, what is the inventory? You know, is it filled with buildings that have a lot of meaning, or isn't it? And I think that if you don't really have that to even start the discussion, what are you talking about? You're talking about supposition. So the question might be then, you know, what areas would people think might have rich resources, rich historic resources, and are they contiguous to what we have today, or are we talking about somewhere completely different? And is there value to having those areas surveyed in some way?
There is another component of the regular CLG grant that is preservation planning, and that would be more in line with that, is hiring someone to come and look at those particular areas. You know, could go along nicely with our master plan that we're just starting up. So that's also an option.
Maybe this is in the training versus in the other, and that is a discussion of what different types of historic district rules are out there. So for example, right now if you're not in the district, you're not really protected from demolition in any way. There's a demolition committee, but it doesn't really have anything. But is there a possibility of a historic district designation that really is focused just on demolition decisions and is not worried about the siding and the windows and things like that? It's like, if you're gonna demolish a building, there's some commission with some teeth in it that has an opportunity to say, we're gonna lose something if that happens.
That could be a component in the sort of camp, because I think that they will look at your city and state's particular laws and ordinances and kind of
See what you
work
can
within
do.
that. Yeah.
I think, you know, spending federal money to increase education is certainly would be a great thing, great asset. I think spending time trying to expand the district, I think that's a waste of time at this point. But no, I'd certainly be for something, just helping the education and promote what we do have.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
So what you're saying is checking the Elwin Park off the list?
Yeah. I mean, when, you can change the district when you're on the council.
All right,
but-
I might.
Yeah.
Just a little sneak peek. My company is actually doing a survey of Elwin Park and its eligibility for the National Register.
Awesome.
So it could be
Very
the
cool.
National Register. Any other thoughts? Any desire? Does anybody have any desire to have a training and set that up, or go for any of this? I mean,
the training sounds great, especially someone new. I am out of town in Europe, so I wouldn't be able to contribute helping with the grant, but.
For this month, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. It's just a letter, and then the grant.
I mean, ChatGPT. Right,
And
over
I think the beginning of December is when they would actually make the decision for giving the grants. So it's a federal thing. It's a long timeline.
We should
So-
do it.
Okay.
Can't hurt, right?
Do we have any strong, I think both would be very beneficial. It might be more beneficial in the short term to have the training, because that, I think, would help us immediately. And then maybe the next round we go for inventory, which I also think would be incredibly helpful. It's all good. So,
Is there any previous applications we can just borrow from and model?
The camp application is a pretty simple application. So that's the advantage of that one, is we don't have to, we know what it is, it's $7,000, we would just basically have to choose from the list of things. It's not finding a consultant.
I don't think it relates to it at all, other than that it's a grant. But I know the rec department got, a big grant for community campus. And then they did the ribbon cutting this past week, and they were told that was the best, most successful grant project that they had given, so.
Cool.
Yeah, but Todd Henley might be able to offer some advice, because he was the one that wrote it.
Do we have to choose one or the other? Could we put in a letter of intent for?
Each community may apply for one or both of them.
So I'm just wondering if, it sounds like the inventory is something that's more likely to be, get the grant, find the consultant, define the project, and then set the consultant going. It's not really something that we would have to spend a lot of time on initially.
Right.
And so we could maybe get that going. And the hardest part might just be defining the scope of it and what we want out of it, which could happen if we get it.
Yeah.
If they say the letter of intent is good, and if we get it down the road.
Yes, I think that the camp can happen pretty quickly. We just schedule that with them at the beginning of next year, but the inventory would be, yes, finding the consultant, awarding that, having them go off, there is and that has to be done within like 2 years, I think, so.
So I think we could
try
layer
for both.
those, yeah.
We could
Because
certainly
otherwise
try
you're just
for both.
waiting another year before you put in the application.
And when we do the letter of intent and say we want to do both, they may come back to us and say, hey, you know what, we've got a lot of applications this year, why don't you just go for one? Or they may come back and say, this sounds great, let's help you get strong applications. They're very helpful with making sure that we get through this, so.
But a survey, I assume, would be a very costly To hire
It depends
professional?
on the scale, on, you know, if we're just doing Islington Street, you know, $20,000 to $30,000 is. Yeah. I mean, because my company has given plenty of proposals for these things, so I have an idea of how much it would cost. And especially for Portsmouth, where there's already so much information, you don't have to do a whole lot of research to figure out when this building was built. We have maps, we have the Athenaeum, you know, it's just the time of pulling that all together.
I just figured you guys would charge $500,000 to do something.
I'd like to,
I've
but
been
but
working
nobody
at the
wants to pay for
shipyard
that.
for too
Not the
long.
Navy.
No, it's not the
We would.
One of the things that I always looked forward to the possibility for this kind of grant process was to, as I said jokingly tonight, that we don't have a fence for Portsmouth. But for those things that are not throwaway items and not of no value, but that keep cropping up, that regardless of how well we do with them, keep cropping up. Trash can enclosures, air conditioning enclosures, fencing between properties. It would just be lovely to have Isaac, in terms of streamlining processes and whatnot, to have Isaac have a book that he could just open up and say, here are 10 or 4 or whatever. I don't think it's that complicated. I'm sure as a committee we could make it more complicated, but I just don't think it's that hard a thing. But we need someone with some qualities and some talent to go through and make those things happen and make that booklet that he could then just have on his desk.
I would love that. I mean, that was one of my intents to be on this committee, was because of my experience of not having that as
Sure.
someone coming through here.
I mean, they're just the practical things. I'd love to have a 3 punch list that we could be certain, because we've made some mistakes, and they're almost the worst of the mistakes we make are of omission. And I don't think we benefit anyone from it. That's the problem with a mistake of omission. There's no winner. And 3 different scales of projects with checklists. Did you check this? So we could be certain we aren't making obvious mistakes. We had one. Well, you came up with one tonight that we didn't make, but came real close. And not that there's the district isn't going to fail because of full screens on one building, but that isn't our intent. It happens. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right,
Well,
great.
I think as a citizen too, or a Portsmouth resident, to have that available to you is invaluable and saves community members thousands of dollars that I had to spend without that. I don't feel like I got the best outcome that I could have ended up with. So.
Absolutely. All right, great. So we'll move forward. I don't think we need to vote on this. This is just sort of a discussion, but I will, with the support of everyone here, I will move forward in applying for both with our first letter of intent. I will be happy to take any
We
assistance.
support you.
This letter of intent is pretty simple. It's a form that we have to fill out. And so if I have any,
If you need proofreader, I'd be happy
okay,
to.
if I have any questions, I will send it all out. I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. Well, then, if there are no other issues,
Second.
I'll adjourn. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Have a good night.